Son of Man Speaks magazine today. With the Son of Man Speaks magazine, you'll receive automotive tips, wholesome recipes, financial advice, and most importantly, a true understanding of the Word of God. Get your copy of The Son of Man Speaks from these select locations. Sisters, Braid 2, 18070 Mount Elliott, the Shell gas station, 13110 West 7 Mile Road. To get a subscription, call 69788. That's 601-786-9788. The Son of Man Speaks magazine, dedicated to becoming free indeed.
Attention, brothers and sisters, viewers and listeners, now available. Your Son of Man Speaks magazine digital subscription. Your digital subscription to the Son of Man Speaks magazine will also include our monthly e-newsletter, both delivered to your inbox. If you have any questions regarding the digital magazine subscription or digital newsletter, you may send an email to shabazprinting@thenewnationofislam.com. That's shabazprinting@thenewnationofislam.com. Or call 1-601-786-9788. That's 1-601-786-9788. You can also subscribe online. Visit www.thenewnationofislam.com and click on the magazine tab to register for your online subscription.
We would like to invite you to help support the efforts of the Unity and Rebuilding Fund. Visit the website at www.unityandrebuildingfund.com. That's www.unityandrebuildingfund.com. We often hear how we need to work together to rebuild the city, and we're actually doing it. You can make online donations and click on links to track the progress of the Unity and Rebuilding Fund. And for more information, 313-868-0000 is a local number. Again, 313-868-0000. Support the Unity and Rebuilding Fund.
To make your online tithes, offerings, donations, gifts to the Son of Man through Cash App, make your payment to $New Nation of Islam. That's $New Nation of Islam. Or call 601-786-7056. 601-786-7056.
Are your clothes coming apart at the seams? Universal Seamstress and Tailoring has got you covered. At Universal Seamstress and Tailoring, we specialize in a wide variety of alterations and transformations to make and keep your clothes looking and fitting their best. From hem jobs to downsizing suits and dresses for a perfect fit to replacing zippers and buttons, Universal Seamstress and Tailoring is your one-stop shop for clothing maintenance. Also, do you have a logo for your clothes you'd like to wear? Universal Seamstress and Tailoring can put it there. That's right. At Universal Seamstress and Tailoring, we not only do alterations, but embroidery as well. Shirts, pants, coats, hats, even bags. If you can wear it, we can embroider it. So remember, whether it be alterations or embroidering you need, Universal Seamstress and Tailoring has got you covered. Universal Seamstress and Tailoring is located at 1404 Main Street, Fayette, Mississippi. Come and see us or give us a call at 601-786-0540.
Year-Around Landscaping has been serving Metro Detroit for over 20 years, offering various landscaping, lawn care, property maintenance, and home renovation. Our professionalism has earned us an outstanding reputation, while our creativity, integrity, and dependability have kept our clients returning and referring us to others. At Year-Round Landscaping, we prioritize quality customer service, We treat every client as our only client before, during, and after providing our services. We believe in building solid relationships with our clients and ensuring their satisfaction. Whether you need a complete outdoor makeover, indoor renovation, or routine maintenance, we have the expertise and resources to deliver outstanding results. Our team is committed to providing exceptional service and completing every project to the highest standard. To schedule an estimate or consultation, please call us at 248-843-6139 or visit our website at yearroundlandscaping.net.
Year-round landscaping. One source, unlimited resources.
I just used your other one though today because it did 2 drips and I was like, oh, I can use my umbrella. My homegirl was talking about it. I'm like, don't talk about it.
With our umbrellas, our customers are turning a drab day into a fab day. After all, representation matters. In other words, rain or shine, we've got you covered. Introducing Designs by Deej, your one-stop gift shop for all things handmade and unique. Our products range from our most popular umbrellas, blanket and pillow sets, handmade coasters, and other statement pieces that showcase the beauty of our melanin and natural hair in a beautiful and empowering way. You can find our brand at the sister shop locations in New Jersey and Atlanta, Georgia, or you can visit our website, www.designsbydeej.com. Again, that's www.designsbydeej.com.
SOS Graphic Design provides agency-quality professional graphic design services from established companies to startups and individuals, creating a simple logo to complete rebranding and delivering visual communication with print media. Everything SOS Graphic Design does has a single unifying objective: to set your business apart. We are at your service. Call 313-342-2166. That's 313-342-2166 or online at www.sosgraphicdesigns.com.
For all facets of professional hair care and braiding, come to Sisters Braid 2, located at 18070 Mount Elliott in Detroit. We specialize in braiding and natural styles, knotless box braids, feed-in braids, scale twists for men, women, and children. We specialize in all facets of healthy hair. Try our natural oils to keep your hair healthy. 313-826-0498 or 248-372-1738.
Murray, out of the pocket. 7 seconds. 6 seconds. Murray hits the downfield. Oh, man, the power's out again.
You have reached Quality Construction and Engineering, your #1 emergency generator source.
Power outages can be unpredictable, inconvenient, and disruptive to your life. With a backup generator, your life goes on uninterrupted with power when you need it. Not to mention the peace of mind of having your property suited to weather the storm.
Whoever would have thought in Houston, Texas, that we would have an ice storm? It did happen, and that Sunday night when it came in, I got up and looked out the front door. Everything was pitch black. It was horrible. Something out of a novel or a science book that you had never seen before. Once the lights went out, my generator popped on. It ran 55 hours. The only one had lights.
Get your backup generator installed with Quality Construction. We install both residential and commercial generators, so you're always covered. Schedule your consultation with us by calling 1-855-876-9370. That's 1-855-876-9370. Or visit us online at www.powerqec.com. That's www.powerqec.com. Financing is available with low monthly payments and 0% interest for 18 months.
That was the best investment that we could have ever made. That's my backup, the Generac.
Generators with quality construction, built tough enough to weather the storm.
Capital Area Planning Services offers a variety of services catered to your land development needs. We offer landscape design, residential design, land planning, mapping and consulting services, and more. We have over 20 years of design and land planning experience. CAPS LLC offers services to developers, builders, architects, surveyors, contractors, government agencies, and private landowners. Feel free to contact us to find out which services are available in your area. You may reach us at 601-326-2966. That's 601-326-2966. You can also visit us on the web at www.capsllconline.com. Let us put on our thinking caps to serve your land development needs.
The views and opinions expressed on the following show are not necessarily the views and opinions of WHPS, its affiliates, management, or sponsors.
Brothers and sisters, are you tired of reading the Holy Scripture and not really understanding what you read? And if you're reasonably sure, have you ever tested that what you feel you know with someone that has a different view than your own? Then let's talk with one another. Then let's reason with one another on a Scriptural Discussion with the Son of Man every Wednesday at 9 p.m., Friday at 9 p.m., and Sunday at 12 noon on WHPR TV Detroit Live, 88.1 FM WHPR, and Comcast Cable. Why don't you call and discuss the Holy Bible, and if you have one, the Holy Quran, and come to an agreement about the Holy Scriptures and their true meaning? You can call in live on the air at area code 313-868-4336, 313-868-0342, or 313-868-0351. That's 313-868-4336, 313-868-0342, or 313-868-0351. And now, let's go live with a Scriptural Discussion with the Son of Man.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, the Truthful, and the Most Just, I greet you all once again who are hungry and thirsty for the true understanding and meaning of the Word of God and for truth in general. I greet you all with the greeting words of peace. May Allah's Salam Alaikum. I want to begin with those who may have questions or anything in particular they may want to discuss with me about Islam and what we teach. Did we have anybody?
No, sir.
Okay. We had a election today, and I voted, and I voted for the governor. In the governor's race, I voted for Brandon Presley. I didn't know he was Elvis Presley's cousin or whatever, but Elvis was a kind-hearted young man. Of course, he was older than me. If he'd been here now, he was up there with Billy Paul and all of them. But you know, we used to run home to some of us around the neighborhood when he was on television. I didn't know they forced him into that, but Kissing Cousins and Jailhouse Rock and all that, yeah. But you know, and it was always something about him that I liked. You know, that, you know, it came off as for real, as real, and not fake. You know. And then when I had that interview with Billy Paul, you know, it kind of, you know, it reinforced what I always thought about Elvis. You know, how respectful he was and how kind he was. And you know, in this world, people who try to be gentle and kind to other people and caring of other people, they become prey to crooks and con men. They prey on them. You know, that young man didn't start his life out on drugs, and David Ruffin, all of the people in that field, they get around people that pretend to care about them when all they really care about is the money that they're gonna make off of them. And but anyway, I hope Mr. Presley wins. As I was going down the ticket, you know, I just decided that I'm gonna vote all Democrat, period, because I just wouldn't feel comfortable voting for any Republican, considering what I've observed of the Republicans and the kind of stuff they support. I mean, and when one stands up for what is right, like Liz Cheney did, and like what's the young man's name? Adam Kinzinger. Kinzinger. They lose the support of the people that they represent simply because they stand up for the Constitution. You know, a vote for Republicans is a vote to destroy the American government. That's what that is. When you vote for Republicans, you voting to destroy the United States government. And a lot of you all, you think that somehow, because you've been listening to people lying to you about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, we're not here to overthrow the government. He said, we're not trying to overthrow the government. Just your ignorance. Matter of fact, he said he respects the American government. That's what he said. He said, and I will not go to their enemies seeking help. So, you know, any of you all who think that you somehow got some help coming from Republicans, especially if you look like me, if you think that you got some kind of support mechanism coming from people who in the Republican Party, you living in a dream world. You so far from reality that if you was a planet in the solar system, you'd be past Pluto. That's how far away from the sun you are. And Pluto is 4,600,000,000 miles from the sun. But anyway, let me show you what I got a question for you. I want to quiz you a little bit here. How do you get rid of a government without the people knowing that that's what you're doing?
You tell them you want to make it smaller.
And it's not so much as tell them. No. What I'm trying to get you to think past that.
You dumb the people down.
Well, that's those are some of the things that you can do. But how do you do it without them knowing you're doing it? Look, that's not rhetorical. I'm asking the whole audience here. I want you to see what I see. I want you to hear what I hear. Yes, unmute them.
Make them think it's their idea.
That's true too, but that ain't it. Because if they think it's their idea, they helping get rid of it. But now, I'm trying to listen to the question. How do you get rid of a government without the people knowing that's what you're doing? How would you get rid of this government? And let's put it like that. How would you get rid of this government without the people knowing that that's actually what you're doing?
So you told us that, like, when you get rid of something, you replace it with something else. So they kind of replacing the government with something else at the same time, so people don't realize that it's going away.
Well, that's one way, but that's not how you can do it without the people knowing it.
Brother Samuel Abdullah said, convince the people the government is not working for them.
Well, if that be the case, then the people will know that they getting rid of the government because it'll be them getting rid of it. But how do you do it without the people realizing that you've done it?
Infiltrate?
Yeah, that too. You see all of these answers that y'all giving me? And you see all of this been going on. But the one thing that you miss is right there in front of you and you ain't seen it. What kind of system do we live in?
A democratic republic.
Yeah, but what kind of system is...
It's a two-party system.
Yeah, but what kind of system are we living in?
A system of democracy.
You keep repeating the same thing, but that's not what I'm looking for. Think past politics. What is this system that we live in?
System of checks and balances.
It's a what?
A system of checks and balances.
Wait a minute. It's two of y'all trying to talk. Now, who Okay, now, say that again.
System of checks and balances.
Well, we live in that system, too. We live in a democratic republic. We live in a... But I'm not looking for that.
System of capitalism.
There. Capitalism. You know, all capitalism has some socialism hooked into it. It has to in order to govern. Do you understand? But now that you understand that we live in a capitalist system, the government also is based on capitalism. Now, you have to go back and think back to the pledge. Grover Norquist. You don't heard no more about him, have you? But what was his main focus? What was the pledge he told them to sign and they could get to govern?
Promise not to raise taxes
for any reason. Now, the government, it's just like most people, they don't never realize that in capitalism, the government is not in business. The government ain't in business. You don't never have to compete with the government in business. The government is sustained by taxes. Those people who work in the Congress, the people who work in the police department, the people who work in the military, the people who work on government jobs and for government entities, they work and get paid by tax revenue. Stop the tax revenue and you shrinking, they ain't gonna have no money to pay people, which means they're gonna have to fire people, which means when you call for the police, it's gonna take them longer to get there because they underfunded, and which means they can't hire enough people. The military, same thing. Look at what this boy tried to do, sneaking in there, trying to tie aid to Israel with defunding the internal revenue. Internal revenue. Listen to the words. Internal revenue. It's the revenue service that goes after people who evade taxes. Why would he want to defund that? Because they're trying to get rid of your government without you realizing what they're doing. What did Donald Trump do? One of the first things he got in there, he cut taxes for the wealthy. Over $2 trillion was ripped out of the United States Treasury. Just ripped it right out of there. Huh? If you can't pay them, they got to find another job. And if they got to find another job, then somebody, whatever that $2 trillion that was missing, you got some departments in the Justice Department, in the government of America, that's being left short-handed. They had to let some people go. Do you understand? They reducing your government, drying it up without you realizing what they're doing, and then you patting them on the back thinking they're doing you some kind of favor.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Is that what Senator Tuberville is doing by making some of those people work 2 jobs?
Tuberville is just an idiot. But this boy that they just put in there for Speaker of the House, his handler's telling him what to do. Get in there and cut some more taxes. Cut some more taxes. That's just another way of saying cut some more revenue away from the United States government. All right. You got people in your government that has infiltrated you, and they just ripping your government apart from the inside, and you there watching, clapping your hands, thinking they doing you a favor. Them people ain't doing you no favor. Do you know that if it had not been for the FDA, when cattle got sick with different diseases, some farmers would have been selling you that meat? Look, I'm going to tell you something. In a capitalist system, don't nobody want to lose. Some of the most what you would call honest people can make can be made to do crooked things if they think their business is about to go under. Do you understand? And that's where your government, they saw the need, because in a society where people are not, this is not a righteous society. This is a society where they say dog eat dog. It's a competitive. People are competing for limited resources. And everybody capitalizing when they can. Do you understand? So you need government. To what? To make sure that while you competing for the resources and competing for wealth and other things, you do so in a lawful manner that does not, if you selling tainted meat, that's cheating. Huh? You destroying your customers. That's not smart business. Huh? It's just like in the drug, the drug dealers. They got to make new clients, because they killing the ones that's buying their drugs. Them drugs is killing their clients, so they steady looking for new clients. Do you understand? They steady purposely infecting. Your first few hits is free. You ever tried this? Yeah, try some. And then once they get you hooked, no, wait a minute. You look like you gotta really have it. Now look, I can't keep giving you this. You gotta go get me some money. And they get you hooked that way. But that's a person that can't see past the tip of their nose. He would rejoice to make a living. And you can't even compare him to a buzzard, because a buzzard don't go around crippling creatures and then circling them, waiting on them to die. He find them already dying, and then he waits until they expire. And then he eats up that carcass. Do you understand? But he's not a killer. He ain't went out there and killed nothing. But so this is what I would advise all of you. See, if you believed that I was the Lord, you would take my advice. But the reason you suffering what you suffering is because you didn't take my advice. You would have never known what bullet you dodged if you had took my advice to vote for Hillary Clinton. You would never have known what you were spared. And instead, you put a man in there that you knew was not qualified, because you were saying you're going to hold your nose and vote for him. You know his attitude stunk. You knew his moral compass was broke and stuck on South. He ain't never, all through his history, he ain't did nothing but lie to people. That's what he in trouble in New York for right now. A history of doing nothing but lying to make money. Do you understand? So, but anyway, I mean, ain't no sense keep on rehashing that, because, I only brought it up is because now you see he's in trouble. His lies done got him in trouble. With who? The government. Now you see why he was trying to destroy the Justice Department? The only way to make his crimes go away is to destroy the people who can hold him to account for him. Do you understand? So, you know, I look at people who sit up out there and they run off at the mouth as though I just started what I'm doing, and they think I'm just somebody who just pop up here and just like some of these fellas walking around here call themselves preaching and talking about God called them and God sent them. And you see all of the skills that I have. Do you think I needed to stand up and do this in order to make some money? Huh? I've had people, since they found out what I know how to do, call me all the time, ask me, would you build me a house? Or would you do this? Build this for me, build that for me. And I tell them, I can't. I ain't got time. And yet, you haven't even thought about the fact that as long as you've known me, you've never heard me up here begging you to give me no money. Huh? Now, what other man do you know of that's saying he representing God that ain't asking you for money every time he come on there? You go visit their place, and they tell you, you know, we got to keep the lights on here, and we got to do this. Now, since when do you go to God's house and God needs your help to keep the lights on? No, sir, that's not the only people who I expect to give me tithes and to help me do this kind of stuff is the members. And I don't ask them. I don't beg them. If they ain't giving nothing, they know what they doing and what they ain't doing. And I do too. You see? So, you know, I mean, I'm not begging you. You benefiting from every dime that you give me. You gonna tell me you don't see the benefit of your tax money? Have you ever drove across this country? There's a department, I think they call it the Department of Transportation, of highways and bridges and that kind of thing. They got separate departments that cover that, I think. But when you drive across this country, you can see your money being spent on the very road that you driving on that's so smooth. Wouldn't have been so smooth if there hadn't been no taxes to cover the cost of it. I don't mind paying for what, Brother James, property taxes, what we pay average a year, about $33,000 a year. That's more than, you could buy a house for $33,000 or whatnot. Every year we could be buying a house with that money. But I don't regret paying the property taxes to help keep government going. Brother James, what we approximately, what is it?
Approximately $33,000. You right around there?
Yeah. I mean, you don't get something for nothing. You want who don't want a county hospital? Really? I mean, you get sick, I bet you wish it was one in your county. You act like even when they say this is free and that is free, it is not free. It is your taxes, and they're not going to double charge you. Your tax money takes care of it. ought to start leveling with the people. I'm telling all of you in government, stop telling people stuff is free. Because you got people who twist what you mean by that. Tell them this is being paid for by the taxes that is collected from the people. And that's why we can give you these things without charging you again. Your tax money is being spent on that. Do you understand? These people lie to you. Government is too big. Government is, yeah. You ask the people when the FEMA come in there, helping them get their house back up and their community back up. When FEMA comes in there and helps clean up after a destructive storm or something came through, ask them, is the government too big? I bet you they'll tell you, no, it ain't too big. We glad that they get able to do this. But you know, if the government hadn't been big enough, those who tried to destroy your country would have succeeded in 1865. That war would have had a different end if the Union hadn't had an army and that was able to meet and overcome those traitors. Do you understand? That's one thing that them crooks said on their way up to the Capitol on January 6th. We outnumber them. How did they know they was going to outnumber them? Because Trump and them had told them, we ain't going to send no National Guard or nothing in there to back them up. They knew exactly what they was up to. A vote for Republicans is a vote to end your democratic republic. Now you think somehow you hurting me. You done forgot your own history, haven't you, boy? Y'all ain't never accepted us as equals in this republic. What do I have to lose? That's one thing even old Donald Trump said. What the hell you got to lose? Ain't nobody did nothing for you. But as I told you, I'm not interested in helping burn down somebody's house while trying to build me one. I don't need to burn down the American government. I just need to get rid of the ignorance of some of the people that don't recognize the value of what they have here. That's the only burning down I'm trying to do, is burn down your ignorance before you throw the goose away that's been laying all these golden eggs. What other nation do you know of that people got so many stories of rags to riches? What other nation? You start off dirt poor and wind up filthy rich. And you want to kill that goose? Like that foolish boy Edward Snowden. He saw the government doing some of the things that was necessary to help keep you safe. And what was they doing? Watching people. If they'd have had maybe a little bit more surveillance, maybe that Boston bomber wouldn't have been able to kill all them people. You can't catch everything, but you can catch some of it if you don't go to sleep on the watch. But if you ain't got enough people watching, and you ain't gonna have enough people watching if you keep on taking the tax revenue away, so the government can't hire nobody to watch. They have what's called fire watch in the military. Ain't no base on this in this country everybody on there sleep at once. It's always somebody standing fire watch. That's just another way of saying looking out for trouble. Do you understand? So he can sound the alarm. And don't get caught flat-footed. Don't get caught sleeping. You went to sleep on the watch, man. Your forefathers told you and showed you how to pick a president. Historically, you went away from the historical norm in choosing somebody to sit in the highest office of your country, of your government. In the first place, when you get people that tell you they're not a politician, then the first thing you should do is, well, you ain't what you want me to put you in politics for. You out of here. Do you understand? In the world, man, get a job working in a hospital and he ain't no doctor. And tell you I ain't no doctor. Because you mad at doctors because you lost a loved one or they lost a patient of yours. So your answer is, don't put no more doctors in the hospital. Do you know how stupid that is? You sent a baby into the chief executive officers of the government of the United States. And then you start filling Congress with them. Spoil brats who determine your worth by what color you are and how much money you got. We need a businessman. Anybody that thought they need a businessman to run the government is a fool. You can't run a government like you run a business. You have to run a government like you run your household. And all your citizens are the children of that household. And if you don't care about all of those citizens, then the DHS need to come get you because you're an unfit parent. Do you understand? So, you know, you determine what your people need, and you figure out a way to get it to them. And sometimes you have to tell those who have, hey, look, your brother over here needs this, and I'm going to need you to, we're going to have to raise some revenue for it to get that. And so this is how much we're going to have to get from those of you who have revenue coming in. We need this tax money. You know what Prophet Muhammad taught? And this is what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught too. He said, none of you is righteous until you love for your brother what you love for yourself. Teddy Kennedy, he supported national health care. He said that every citizen should be entitled to the same quality care that they paying for every member of Congress. I mean, how can a man sitting up in Congress look at himself in the mirror and know that the taxpayers' money is paying for his complete health care? And then he turn around and say that the taxpayers' money should not be used to pay other citizens who can't afford good health care. It should not be used for that. That's socialism. Nigga, please. You using it? No. They want to destroy your government. And they've been dumbing you down. That has been happening. All of that was leading into this. Now, cut the taxes. And they won't have sense enough to know that that's just a way of quickly getting rid of their government. What they show you. They show the bosses. The boss say, cause the government shutdown. They don't want to pay the debt. And the debt ceiling. They get in an argument about the debt ceiling. Well, they're gonna shut the government down. They're gonna shut the government down. Well, that's what they've been wanting to do all the time. They want to shut your government down. That's what the Civil War was about, to shut your government down. But the pen is mightier than the sword. I didn't hear you. So they figured out another way to shut you down, and you wouldn't even know you wouldn't even know what they had done to you. So I'm trying to show you now. Now I think I done said enough on that. I want to show you something else here. You know, did anybody disagree with me on anything I said? I want to hear. Look, don't ever let nobody get away with coming to you, telling you stuff, and then don't let somebody come in there and poke holes in what they said if they can. Do you understand? Don't never just take something that me or anybody say without them giving people who disagree the opportunity to discuss it in front of you. Do you understand? You make them do that, and I guarantee you, pretty soon you won't be listening to all of these Fox News and all of these other people that's out here. Tell you what, call Fox News and tell them to get the Son of Man and bring him on that. Tell them to interview me. Sean Hannity and all them other liars out there. You tell them to get me in there. I'll come in there. And they can ask me all the questions they want. They can throw everything they have at me and watch what happens to them. They ain't nothing but a bunch of liars who don't give a damn about the United States government. And if you don't care about the United States government, I got a what they call it, what them youngsters put on there for your information. What is it? Huh? FYI. If you don't care about the United States government, you already saying you don't care about the United States people, because the people put them people in the government. When you disrespect the elected ones, you disrespecting the people who elected them. That's what Benjamin Netanyahu did when he came over here and spoke to Congress without an invitation from the President of the United States. He disrespected everybody who elected that president. What in the world are you doing over here speaking to our Congress, bypassing our president? You racist dog. Anyway. Yeah, it's funny how it's really funny, strange how people delight in doing to other people what they scream like hell when it's done to them. Jesus said you should love your neighbor as yourself. Who is your neighbor? Black people have been more neighborly to white people than white people ever was to white people. I didn't hear you. How many serial killer black people do you know of that was going around trying to kill white folks? But do they love us as they love themselves? No. You see? And there was a time when people like Clarence Thomas, he was right on time. He was doing what he was supposed to do. That time done came and gone. You ain't got no business trying to help the devil be the devil now. You got no business trying to help them do evil to your people now. I'm here to put a stop to all of that. And all of you black faces that's been secretly undercover agents of Jacob's rulership, it wasn't just white people that was told to stop that work after 6,000 years. It was everybody who was part of that. I'm going to let you hear something from a scientist that put a piece in a puzzle that I had always kind of thought about death and how oftentimes they've pronounced people dead when the brain was actually hibernating because it lacked oxygen. But anyway, the brain is much more sophisticated than you think. But anyway, I'm going to first let you see something else here. You see, your lies will find you out. Now, you know, you always got people who think that they so smart that that the only one that got some sense in the room is them. Do you understand? You notice, I didn't tell you that all of y'all's ideas were not right, but I told you to remember the question. You see, when the way they got it, they will get you to destroy it and help you to come up with the idea to do it. But they have been destroying it without you even realizing that that's what they were doing. Do you understand? Whenever you want to destroy this government, one of the telltale signs of somebody who's trying to destroy the government is when people tell you we need to reduce taxes. Why? Why do taxes need to be reduced? Government is too big. What's too big about it? What? So you saying that all of these past Congresses that raised revenue for government, they didn't have a clue to what was needed and what's not. So you don't need no IRS, right? You don't need no Internal Revenue Service to make sure people are, I mean, if you're going to utilize the highways, if you're going to utilize the police department, you want to utilize the military if this country is attacked, you want the services of the government, but you don't want to have to pay for it. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, that's exactly what they're saying. You don't want nobody watching to make sure you're not giving the public a raw deal. That's what the public produced the government for, is to watch while they working and going about their daily activity. The government watches over everybody. Like what do you put a referee out on in the ring, a boxing ring for?
To watch and make sure they playing by the rules.
Don't hit no low blow. If you hit a low blow, we're gonna take points from you. And if you do it too often, we're gonna give the match to the other man. Do you understand? You're watching the fight. The referee watching to make sure that the fight is honest. Do you understand? You watching the football game. The referees, they out there watching the players to make sure that whatever play they running, they ain't cheating. Do you understand? Because inevitably, let's face it, you got people that bet on them games, huh? So they want the game to be fair. They want to make sure that people are not cheating on the field. You understand? When you go to the basketball court, the basketball game, you got 2 or 3 referees running up and down now with them. And you notice you don't hardly ever even pay no attention to the referees. But they're out there, staying out of the way, but at the same time, getting in the way when necessary. Huh? You hear that whistle blow? Okay, what happened? He stepped on the line back there. He fouled that man. 2 free throws. Huh? 2 free throws of the ball. If he make them, well, what does that teach? Man, his team is mad at him now. That fouled him, man. Man, you can't be out there fouling, giving away points, man. We can't have that. Huh? As they said, it's not whether you win or lose, it's how you played the game. I learn more from y'all's world than you do. That's what it was actually put here for. The hidden reason, the open reason was for the perdition of ungodly and wicked people. But the unspoken word was so that the Son of Man can learn what not to do. You ain't got to worry about me trying to follow you. I don't want to be nowhere close to following you. You ever notice when people come in here and call themselves giving me advice? I ain't come here to listen to you tell me how I should do nothing. Get out of the way. Huh? No. I don't need your guidance. So now listen to this.
Well, if you're wondering just how much special treatment Donald Trump gets as a defendant, the answer is more special treatment than any defendant in American history, much more. The proof of that once in history level of special treatment came in a Manhattan courtroom today when the judge presiding over the civil fraud case against defendant Donald Trump said something that no judge has ever said before, speaking directly to defendant Trump, who was sitting under oath in the witness stand. The judge said to him, "You can attack me." In the 400 years of courtroom history in America dating back to the colonial courts, no judge.
Is that fake news? Have you ever been in a courtroom where a judge told you you can verbally attack me? When did huh? You know, it's just like I tell people, you can argue with me, but I'm not going to accept your insults. No. I was told not to. Now, this judge, he's taking insults from Donald Trump. Do you understand? Why? Because he is both judge and jury. And he is making a record. They can try to appeal it all they want. But that judge sat there and let that liar sit up there and say all kind of hateful things about him. Refused to answer the question. The judge even warned him. He said, look, if you don't answer the question, I'm going to, that can be taken as an inference that your answer would be in the negative against you. Do you understand? You have a chance here to defend yourself. You understand? Answer the question. Did you do this or did you do that? That's a yes or no question. He goes off into a tirade like he's at a rally or something. So the judge told him, this is not a political rally here. The judge almost defending him. Tell him, hey, man, you need to answer these questions here. Do you understand? But he wouldn't do it because he's so smart.
Has ever said that in court to any defendant or any witness until today. That's how much special treatment Donald Trump is getting. On the witness stand today, in that fraud case, Donald Trump did not wait for the judge's permission to attack him. Donald Trump began attacking the judge instead of answering questions right away. And he attacked New York's Attorney General from the witness stand, something no witness has ever done before in a New York courtroom. In one of the judge's many failed attempts to get Donald Trump to answer the questions being put to him by an assistant attorney general, the judge told Donald Trump, you can attack me, you can do whatever you want, but answer the questions. Donald Trump did the first two of those things. He attacked the judge. He did whatever he wanted. But he didn't do the third thing. He did not answer the questions. And it does not matter.
And you know the sad part? His lawyer didn't ask the court for a brief recess to have confer with his client and remind his client that, hey man, this ain't the place for that. You need to cool out. How am I going to appeal something? See, I'm sharing it with him. You can't appeal nothing if ain't nothing appealable. You need to figure out a way to answer these questions that you being asked. Or you gonna lose this case. Do you understand? But can't nobody tell Donald Trump nothing. Huh? Because he the smartest one in the room. No matter where he go, he always the smartest one in the room. Do you understand? Okay.
Donald Trump's lawyers did not ask for a jury trial in the case, which doesn't prevent Donald Trump from constantly complaining that there's no jury. Deciding whether Donald Trump and his sons committed fraud in falsely exaggerating the value of their holdings was entirely up to the judge in the case, who has already reached a verdict that Donald Trump and his two sons did indeed commit fraud. The proceeding going on now in the courtroom is about nothing other than how big a penalty should the judge impose on Donald Trump and his sons and the family business. As has been said many times on this program, no sane criminal defense lawyer would ever allow Donald Trump to testify under oath in court. But this is not a criminal trial. And that's why you're seeing Donald Trump testify, which we will not see in any of the 4 criminal trials Donald Trump is facing. Because this is a civil trial, the defendant can be called to the witness stand by either side in the case. And so the Attorney General has called Donald Trump as a witness to show the judge that Donald Trump was actively involved in what the judge has already ruled was a fraud. But the judge already knows that Donald Trump was actively involved in that fraud based on Donald Trump's under oath pretrial deposition and the rest of the evidence in the case. Today, the judge made it clear to Donald Trump that if he refused to answer a question by making a campaign speech instead, as Donald Trump did many times, the judge would then take a negative inference from Donald Trump's refusal to answer. In other words, if the Attorney General asked Donald Trump if he approved of a false valuation and Donald Trump rambled on and refused to answer that question, the judge could then infer that Donald Trump was simply trying not to admit the truth that he did knowingly approve false valuations. Donald Trump made some admissions under oath that were lost to many observers of the trial in all of the bluster of the day. When asked why the square footage of his New York apartment was listed as triple the actual size, Donald Trump admitted under oath that the exaggerated square footage created a false valuation. Trump said the number was too high. The Attorney General introduced a deed to Donald Trump's Florida residence, which he operates as a private club because he cannot afford to live there without the income from the private club. The deed to that property says the club and Trump intend to forever extinguish their right to development or use the property for any purpose other than club use. That is why the actual value of the property is severely limited. The deed severely limits the possible purposes of a sale. It cannot be sold for a higher value purpose. When confronted with the deed limiting the value of that property, witness Trump seized on one word in the deed, the word intend. Trump said, intend doesn't mean we will do it. Because Donald Trump is one of the very stupidest people ever to be charged with business fraud, and because his demonstrably ineffectual lawyers obviously do not have the skills to prepare their client for even the simplest and most obvious questions, Donald Trump incriminated himself and his children with the only one-word answer that he gave all day. Question: who within the Trump organization was responsible for preventing and detecting fraud? Answer: everybody. And there, Donald Trump destroyed any shred of defense in the case for himself and his co-defendants, Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump. Everybody. You could spend weeks trying to think of a stupider answer than that, and you cannot come up with one. Now remember, going into his testimony today, the verdict was already rendered on the fraud that Donald Trump and his sons committed. The question now is only, will they face the maximum penalty for that fraud, which could include fines of up to $250 million? Donald Trump's job as a witness today was to give the judge a reason, any reason, to lower the penalty against him and his sons. His job was to make the judge think the fraud wasn't Donald Trump's fault, wasn't Donald Trump Jr.'s fault, wasn't Eric Trump's fault. It was the accountant's fault or something like that. That wouldn't eliminate the penalty, but it could significantly soften it. And instead, Donald Trump continued his war with the judge who is going to decide the fate of Donald Trump's business. And Donald Trump incriminated himself and his kids. Question: who within the Trump organization was responsible for preventing and detecting fraud? Answer: everybody. Lawyers dream of moments like that in court, where you get the witness on the stand who thinks he's the smartest guy in the room, which is something only stupid people think in courtrooms, and he gives you a fast and loose answer to the key question in the case. Good lawyers never make the key question the first or the last question. They never let it stand up like that. They fold it into the middle of the witness examination and try to use it when they think the witness feels most comfortable, most in control. And so, a couple of hours after the judge told Donald Trump, you can do whatever you want, Donald Trump stupidly felt comfortable and in control and then said, the stupidest possible thing he could say as a witness. Everybody was in on the fraud. That was Donald Trump's testimony today about his family business. Leading off our discussion tonight is Adam Klasfeld. He is the senior legal correspondent for The Messenger. He was in the courtroom for today's proceedings. Adam, we rely on your courtroom tweets through the day that work basically as a transcript right up until we get the official transcript. And I have to tell you, yours matched word for word what we found in the official transcript. When you sort through all the crazy bluster, which is kind of easy to do when the dust clears and it's all over, Donald Trump did not do himself any good at all in that room today.
Absolutely, Lawrence. And I would go even a step further with the point that you were making about that passage of who's responsible for rooting out fraud, everybody. There's another key issue at the trial, which was the awareness and the responsibility for the statements of financial condition that Trump and the Trump organization provided to banks and insurers. That's the heart of the case. And if you remember, when we were talking about Eric Trump's testimony and Don Jr.'s testimony, their testimony was, in the case of Don Jr., basically passing it off to the accountants and the lawyers. And for Eric Trump, his answer was, I didn't know anything about it. Trump conceded it. And it goes to the very issue that you were talking about earlier, about the permissiveness, about the you can attack me. And it seemed for a while, there was a moment that the judge was threatening to cut Trump's testimony short if he didn't go forward and give straightforward answers. And the AG did not push that issue. He did not actually object to the long-winded answers. He let Trump talk. And in scrutinizing the answers, in watching the dust settle, and in...
He let Trump talk. There's an old saying, give a fool enough rope, and what will he do? Hang himself. You see, he want to be Hitler. He want to be Goebbels. But he don't know when to shut his mouth. Do you understand? See, the one thing that Hitler and Goebbels knew, that you could tell the big lie, but keep it simple. The minute you keep adding to that lie, it's getting more and more complicated. Do you understand? You see, and the last thing you want is to get on the stand with anybody to be questioned by about that, what you said. Because you're going to, in order to defend it, you're going to have to cover it. You got to cover it with a bigger lie. Do you understand? I mean, this man already done gave aid and comfort to people who was guilty of insurrection and plotting insurrection. Talking about, we love you, now go home, and you special, and all that. I mean, he already gave aid and comfort to him. He guilty of a lot of things that I don't even know if he's been charged with that yet. But, man, that man got trouble. And now he done, the Attorney General, the AG, they call him Attorney General, he let him talk and then zinged him with the question. Who's responsible for detecting fraud in your organization, in your business? Everybody. It just say everybody. Okay, got him. Huh?
Affecting the transcript, we can see perhaps a little bit of the strategy as to why.
Yeah, it certainly let Donald Trump get more and more relaxed and let him feel more and more confident, and that's exactly where the Attorney General wanted him.
That's absolutely the case. And you can see throughout the questioning. Now, this happened in the morning when Trump started calling the judge unfair and arguing with the judge about the ruling. In the afternoon session, he continues going after the judge, who, as you noted, has great power, wielding over whether Trump will be forced to pay hundreds of millions of dollars in ill-gotten gains, will be forced to be put out of business permanently, barred from serving as a director or an officer of a New York corporation. He goes and attacks a judge again, and without any penalty. And in that comfort comes the testimony that could haunt him later, particularly once this goes on appeal. And the judge's earlier ruling, the ruling shutting down his New York business empire, is scrutinized.
Adam Klesfeld, thank you very much for your reporting, as always.
Thank you very much for having me.
And joining us now is Mary Trump, political psychologist and niece of Donald Trump. She is the author of The Reckoning, Our Nation's Trauma and Finding a Way to Heal. Mary, thank you very much for joining us tonight. When I saw the imagery of Donald Trump in the courtroom today, I thought of you. Let's take a look at that. I was wondering what you thought when you saw this image of Donald Trump. These are the cameras that are allowed in the court before the proceeding officially gets underway, just so they can establish a photographic image of the room for audiences. What do you see when you see that man sitting at that table?
I felt the need to tell him that pouting is not an affirmative defense. But he clearly didn't get the message. He probably thinks he's looking stern and he's staring everybody down, but he does look like a disgruntled toddler. And I think you've covered really thoroughly the fact that his lack of intelligence has gotten him in trouble in his testimony. But the other thing, one other thing that is his misperception of the kind of control he has, which is to say he thinks he's in control, but he's not in control at all.
Yeah, and that seems to be something that the Attorney General actually wanted to encourage in him as a witness, the feeling, please be comfortable, please feel like you're in control of this, because then you just won't see us coming when we have these questions where you will incriminate literally everybody in the family business.
Yeah, it was masterfully done. And it was, at first, very frustrating that the judge wasn't intervening in any way. I think anybody else would have been slapped with contempt charges and would be sitting in a county jail right now. But as you mentioned, the prosecutor clearly wanted Donald to feel comfortable and confident in saying whatever he felt the need to say. And I think that aligned really well with Donald's unconscious impulse to twist what's actually going on. He's being accused on one level of being an entirely unsuccessful businessman. He's being accused of being a total failure. And in order to counter that, he needs to start bragging about how much he's worth, and he needs to start insulting people and feel like he is dominating. And as you alluded to, it made him walk into every single trap that was set for him, and probably some that weren't even set intentionally.
I've never seen defense lawyers do a worse job in any form of litigation than the Trump lawyers. They are just the worst I've ever seen, utterly incompetent. But they also attack the judge. They refer reverentially to Donald Trump as the former and future president. They say that kind of nonsense in court. And that apparently is what he's paying for, if he's actually paying them. His contributors are paying him, I guess. But these lawyers have been completely legally wiped out every step of the way, and Donald Trump doesn't seem to be smart enough to even notice that part.
No, it's actually quite stunning, and I think we're seeing the limits of tactics that he's used in the past. You know, this used to fly when he was in a boardroom and throwing temper tantrums to get his way in a deal that he was threatening to renege on, for example. But it's really amazing that these attorneys do not seem to understand that by treating Judge Engeron as if he were the base, and by treating this trial as if it were a political exercise, they are going to get their client in a lot of trouble. And I understand why Donald doesn't seem to have gotten the memo that the fraud part of this trial has already been adjudicated against him, but his lawyers don't seem to understand that either. And that's the part that is just incredible.
At the end of his legal roads, he's going to look up, and his contributors will have paid a lot of attorney's fees to a lot of lawyers, so far, all of whom have performed as nothing but sycophants to Donald Trump, embarrassing themselves as lawyers, debasing themselves, doing things that are below what anyone's ever imagined lawyers might do in any given situation. And Donald, I'm wondering if Donald Trump's ever going to notice at the end of the whole thing how bad his own lawyers were.
No, not at all. Because, again, they, like all of his other sycophants, are performing for an audience of one. That's all that matters to him. And he continues to believe that he's in control of his destiny. Although, as we can clearly imagine at this point, based on the reporting that his next, hopefully, theoretical administration is already trying to game the system so that he's dictator for life, he's banging up against the impossibility of continuing to get away with what he's been getting away with his whole life. Finally, we can say that the walls are closing in, and part of the reason they are is because he doesn't even realize it.
There are two cases that will be unaffected by the outcome of the presidential election, no matter which way it goes. One is this case. It's a New York State case, and so whatever's going to happen to his business is going to happen, and there's absolutely nothing that can be done about that at the federal government presidential level. And the Georgia case against him, which can also proceed. There's no possible way to interfere with that case from the presidency. What will Donald Trump try to do? He must know now that those are the two cases that he cannot in any way stop, no matter what happens.
Well, he's going to try to win or steal the election next November. The pressure he's under is extraordinary. And, you know, you and I, Lawrence, have spoken about this over the last few years. It is worse now than it was in the fall of 2020. We are in a greater and more dangerous tipping point than we were after the election of 2020. And we have to recognize that the more defeats Donald suffers in court, especially if they're the kinds of defeats that go to his very sense of identity, right? And that don't have the kinds of punishments that will take him off the board as a political player, the more dangerous he's going to get. So I'm very concerned that the calendar isn't going to allow for matters to be settled before the general election, because that's only going to give him more room to start preparing to create a situation in which the verdicts in this case and the verdicts in Georgia do not matter at all to his political future or his judicial future.
Mary Trump, thank you very much for joining us once again.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Thank you. And coming up, Rachel Maddow. That's all I have to say. Rachel's next.
Ohio voters have approved a ballot measure that will enshrine the right to abortion in the state constitution. So the advocates for a woman's right over her own body are now a constitutional right in Ohio. And whenever you such a sorry man that your woman don't want to have your baby, it don't make no difference what you do. It ain't gonna work. You know, you ought not even want a woman carrying your baby that don't want it, because her feelings for you is being transferred even into that unborn child, and that's a recipe for disaster. But anyway, I'm glad that the American people seem to be waking up that slavery is wrong, regardless to how you try to shroud it in and protect your mischief by framing up a law and all that kind of stuff. Slavery is wrong. To enslave a person is to make yourself another person's keeper, when every individual is born with their own keeper. It's called your brain and a mind that has a will. Do you understand? You can't be other people's keeper. That's not freedom. If people don't agree with you based on reason, you have to let them go. Okay. Now, this is something that I was listening to today on MPB, Mississippi Public Broadcasting. And I thought it was so interesting because it, in many ways, it tied into some scriptures that, you know, they were very thought-provoking. You understand? You remember I told you that the Lord of the body is the brain, and the Lord of the brain is the mind? Do you understand? This kind of reiterates that. You know, it's just like your brain is empathic. It's empathetic. Do you understand? Just like when they give you morphine, that morphine goes to the receptors in your brain and dulls it, and the brain stops feeling for that member. Do you understand? So it numbs, as they say, numbs the pain. What it actually does, it quiets the pain receptor, and so the brain does not feel and that pain. But the brain itself doesn't feel anything for itself. It's totally empathic. That's the way the messengers of God were. Greater love hath no man than this, that he lay down his life for his friends. You remember when they came looking for Jesus? And he asked them, whom seek ye? And they told him, Jesus of Nazareth. He said, well, then if it's, I am he, and if it's me you seek, let these go on about their business. Huh? He said, take them too. Did he? No. He said, let them go on about their business. You see, when you have the godly love, then that does away with this fear for your own self, which makes you able to do what is right for those who trust you. Do you understand? And so that is what perfect love is. It casteth out fear. It's like the brain. The brain and the body, they have a perfect symbiotic relationship. The brain feels for the body, and the body trusts the brain, and so the brain can tell the body to walk through fire, and because the body trusts the brain, it does it. Do you understand? The body is entrusted to the brain. You see? Every body has its own brain. Every soul comes with its own keeper. Do you understand? So all praises due to Allah. But I thought this was so enlightening here.
What happens after someone dies is a mystery that's been pondered by multitudes. Philosophers, creatives, religious leaders, physicians, and researchers have all attempted to understand the transition. Some variation of the line, "walk into the light," has been written into comedy sketches, songs, even cartoons. The news has featured dramatic stories of people who saw their lives flash before their eyes or felt an overwhelming sense of peace when they had a brush with death. It's a topic scientists continue to study, and new research reveals that a significant number of survivors of cardiac arrest report awareness, thought, and memory during CPR. From KERA in Dallas, this is Think. I'm Courtney Collins in for Chris Boyd. This multi-year study focused on hospitalized patients and was published this summer in an international medical journal called Resuscitation. Dr. Sam Parnia is lead author on the study, as well as associate professor at New York University's Grossman School of Medicine, and he joins us now. Dr. Parnia, welcome to Think.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Courtney.
Before I let him finish, what's another word for resuscitation?
Revive.
What's another word for revive?
Resurrect.
Resurrect. Resurrection. God is the God of who?
The living and not of the dead.
Speak not of my servants as dead,
for they are alive,
and you perceive not. They done found out that a lot of times when they thought people went into cardiac arrest and the brain was without oxygen for more than 6 minutes, that person was through. Now they done found out that ain't necessarily so. do you understand? And it's amazing. Like I said, I've told you all many times, stay here as long as you can, because you don't know what Allah gonna reveal tomorrow that could have helped you. A living dog is better than a dead lion. It's very important that you understand what my purpose here is. And this is going to help you understand it. Because the scripture says the Son of Man have power on earth to forgive sins. That's why your self-accusing spirit, which may convict you, won't be able to if I don't forgave you. Do you understand? And that'll come up. But it's deeper than it sounds.
Before we get into the study and what you learned from it, I do want to ask some kind of big picture questions about how you landed on this topic. So tell me a little bit about what led you in this direction.
My job, I'm an intensive care doctor. And so we deal with people who are undergoing life-threatening illnesses. And unfortunately, some of those people do cross into death, and we sometimes cannot save them. So we deal with life and death on a daily basis. My own personal interest started even before I graduated medical school. I was a final year medical student, and I was going to cardiac arrest events. And this is important to point out. A cardiac arrest, even though it has the word cardiac in it, is not really a heart attack. It actually refers to what happens when we all die, which is that the heart stops. And I noticed that sometimes the treatments that doctors would give were different And to me, it didn't make any sense because this was a pure, life and death situation. If you didn't get them back, they would be dead. That was by definition what was going to happen. And then what happened really that changed everything for me was one time I got to know a patient very well, a very sweet old man that I had admitted as a final year student. And I built up a rapport with him and his whole family. And then unexpectedly, 30 minutes later, there was a call for an emergency cardiac arrest in the emergency room itself. And when I got there, after 5 or 10 minutes, I realized this was the same sweet man that I had been talking to who had died. He had flatlined. People were desperately trying to save him, and they tried for over an hour. And I remember watching and thinking to myself, well, what happened to his consciousness? Is he able to hear us? Is he able to see us? And when did he die? I mean, they were trying to save him, but he was clearly dead. He was flatlined, and they tried for an hour. So lots of questions essentially buzzed through my head, and they sort of shaped my view of things when I graduated and I decided to study these. And at that time, I thought this would be a quick, 1-year project. And here we are 25, almost 30 years later, conducting these types of studies.
I feel like cardiac arrest is one of those terms that everybody who's ever, watched television has heard because it's in medical dramas. It's one of those kind of phrases that all of us civilians that don't have a connection to the medical world recognize. But is it an understudied area?
It's an understudied area for sure. It's also complex because actually it's a different term for death. So I have to just point out that if you think about it, for thousands of years, for as long as we know actually throughout history, however long that is, whenever the heart stopped in people, so think about it, how do people die? They have infections, they have accidents, they have, strokes, whatever it may have been. The final stage in any disease process that causes death is that the heart stops. And then there's no more blood flowing around the body, and so the brain shuts down, people stop breathing, and they lose all signs of life. And so throughout history, we've defined death as a moment, and that moment being when the heart stopped. Mm-hmm. But what happened 60 years ago was that doctors actually inadvertently discovered a way to restart the heart in people who would be dead. And they showed that you...
Notice. Now, he said 60 years ago. Okay.
Some people back, even after they had crossed beyond the boundaries of death. And so now sort of being a little bit stuck with this issue, because now death was no longer as permanent as people thought, we started to call it cardiac arrest when doctors were intervening in the process. And for those who didn't want to have resuscitation or who, for whatever reason, couldn't get it, people would just declare them dead based on the heart stopping. So that's caused some ambiguity, and therefore people think they're familiar with the term cardiac arrest as if it's some sort of disease, it's a heart attack, but it isn't. It's the final stage when we all die. And of course, being death, to answer your question, because people have perceived that as some sort of end, there are many misconceptions about it, and consequently there's also inadequate research and inadequate funding to discover what happens beyond death, beyond what happens when the heart stops.
So for those of us who don't know much about the world of medical research and how it gets started, what is the process for getting a study like this off the ground? How much time usually elapses between, here's what I want to look at, that germ of an idea, the thesis, to the data actually being collected? Is it a long process?
Yes, it is a long process. And also, as I think I alluded to, for me, this has been a sort of a 25-year journey. It's accompanied me throughout my whole medical training, specialization in intensive care medicine. I'm now a subspecialist in cardiac arrest resuscitation, as well as finding treatments to not only restart the heart, but prevent brain injuries in people whose hearts have been revived, and to bring them back and send them home. But what is unique about what we do is that we've also incorporated the study of the human mind and consciousness, not forgetting that ultimately Courtney and Sam, aside from whatever biological process is going on, we're thinking conscious beings. And that's what really matters, that we can integrate that into research. So it is a long process, but to sort of maybe more specifically answer your question, this last project, which is one of a number of studies that have been developed through these years, itself took about 10 years from inception to completion. And it was the world's most comprehensive and methodical study that has tried to examine objectively what happens to the human mind and consciousness in people who are transitioning from life to death as they're receiving resuscitation attempts to try to drag them back to life. And it was carried out in 25 major medical centers, mostly in the United States and the United Kingdom, with more than 30 researchers and ultimately 567 participants.
So tell me a little bit more about the parameters. Like you said, it was across different hospitals, mostly in the U.S. This took place, the data gathering was kind of from 2017 to 2020. Is that correct?
The bulk of the data actually started from 2017, but actually the project itself started in 2013.
Right.
Because you have to appreciate that it's unheard of for people to try to attach sophisticated brain monitoring systems, which is what we did, onto the brain of people who are actively undergoing resuscitation in this major life and death emergency, which is usually, as you can imagine, and somewhat correctly depicted on television, it's a very high-tension, tense environment with lots of activity where people are frantically trying to save somebody's life. And so to be able to independently have a research team to go in that situation and actively put monitors on people and collect data and interpret them later, it is quite sophisticated. And so in order to do that, we had to do this in steps. And the first step started at a single site where I used to work, in a number of patients where we tried to sort of test the feasibility of even getting into the room, not interrupting resuscitation attempts. How do we carry these brain monitors? How do we attach them to people? So these processes took some time. But yes, ultimately by 2017, the study had expanded to its full 25 sites, and each site was given a bag full of equipment that they would take based on what we had learned to the scene of cardiac arrest in their own institutions, and then follow the same protocols and collect information from brain monitors, as well as independent tests that we created using a tablet computer that was also taken to the room that would give audio-visual stimuli through a Bluetooth headphone that was attached to patients while they were all being revived back to life again.
It was fascinating to read about how you all did that so seamlessly and without disrupting any of the efforts to bring the person back. Tell me a little bit more, just give us some more detail about the audio-visual stimuli.
Well, what's fascinating, as I mentioned, after the discovery of CPR, because until then, the discovery of CPR actually coincided with the discovery of intensive care medicine as a field.
Interesting.
Where we developed life support systems, ventilators that we also come to the fore during COVID, for example, that really saved people's lives. These happened together. And so for the first time in history over the last 60 or so years, people who would otherwise never have been able to live are now living and are able to tell us what they've experienced when they were either getting close to death or actually objectively when they crossed beyond the boundaries of death. And I say that because people sometimes think, well, it's not possible to go beyond death. But we have to realize those are social notions, those are philosophical notions that we have in society about life and death being binary, like black and white. In reality, death and life themselves are essentially a biological process, and it's really a shade of gray. And so, yes, you can go beyond death. This is not a play with words. You can really go beyond death and still be brought back to life again. So that's essentially what led to our work, because throughout these last 60 or so years, millions and...
What I got out of that was you can go beyond clinical death, and where people, all your biological functions seem to have stopped. But in many cases, hibernation is like that. You can appear that you, for all practical intents and purposes, you are dead. But as you notice, the scripture says, all live unto him. You see, all matter lives. Matter, if matter actually died, then it could not be reused. But matter lives. It is living material. And the only thing that dies is the form that it was in. But that same material, just like every time we eat, matter is transforming from dying in one state and being reborn into another state. Do you understand? And so these are things where like a lot of people say that scientists cannot believe in God. Scientists are the only ones who truly do believe in God. Because scientists, they believe in searching and receiving and accepting truth when they find it. And that's who God is. God is the truth. Do you understand? Which you're going to hear him say some things that's right. It proves Scripture. You know, that it is appointed unto men once to die. And after this is the judgment. But just wait.
Millions of people from all over the world who've been revived have said that they had this incredible experience where, although from the perspective of doctors who were trying to save them, like myself, they were in death and deeply in a deep coma and unresponsive, internally, they felt that their consciousness had not been annihilated. And in fact, that their consciousness had become more heightened, more lucid, their thinking had become sharper. And amazingly, they described having awareness of visual things that were going on around them and auditory things that people were talking or saying. And these have been validated by doctors and nurses independently. So this is really what led us to try to study this phenomena better, because we wanted to understand scientifically and objectively if these claims are true, are they correct, and what do these experiences really feel like? What are the themes that people describe when they've gone, as I said, as they're transitioning from life to death? And importantly, can we find a brain marker using objective tests in these people that would validate and confirm what they've been reporting for years?
And I'm assuming what you just kind of elaborated on is the reason you prefer the term recalled experiences of death instead of something like near-death experiences or a brush with death, because in your view, it's a medical threshold. It's not a black and white, alive, not alive binary.
Yes, there are actually many reasons, and I'm glad you brought that up, because what happened, you see, after the discovery of CPR around 1960, around 15 years later, a medical student called Raymond Moody collected 150 testimonies of people who had come to death or whose hearts had stopped, and he labeled those near-death experiences. And because at that time, people didn't understand that you could actually go to death and come back. So he came out with the term near-death. But we have to remember, actually, the sort of first studies in this were 100 years before that. And a French philosopher called Egert actually had coined the phrase imminent death experiences. And so the French still use the term imminent, whereas we are used to the word near death. But the reality is that, based on science, people can cross.
It is. You can call it either one, near death or imminent death. Why? Because when you reach a point where the life energy of this force, of this body, when it can't stay cohesive any longer, then it is near death. Do you understand? Imminent death. It is about to transform if you can't find a way to hold it together. Do you understand? And so I can understand them calling it near death or imminent death. Do you understand? But it's like the messenger said, scientists, they don't have to take a whole book. They can take one word and argue over one word. Do you understand? What are they arguing over? The best description. Because everything is in the name. Everything is in the description. Because the more you can, it's like looking at a thing. And you look at it through one power of microscope, and it looks one way. Or look at it with your naked eye, it looks one way. You look at it under a microscope, it looks another way. And you want to describe whatever it is you're looking at in the best terms, because the truth is fractional. There's no such thing as the whole truth. The truth is fractional. There is no end to truth. So what do we do with fractions? We put them in their simplest term, their most simplistic term. And when you can describe things in the most simplistic manner, then your communication is excellent. Do you understand? Even a child can understand it. Then you know you got it going on. It's just like you walk outside and you, with clear view, you notice most of the things around you. If you ask the child who has had rudimentary learning, what is that? They say it's a tree. What is that? That's grass. What is that? That's dirt. And they give you the same answer that an adult gives you. Do you understand? And then we get more intricate when we start naming the type of trees, the type of grasses. Do you understand? But at least they know the rudimentary thing, that it's grass, it's a tree, it's a cow, it's a horse. Do you understand? So, near death, imminent death, you know, there's many ways to describe the same thing. But which way is the best way? That's what the scientists, many people, they don't think in terms of a best way. They think that a word is just a word. Well, a word is not just a word. The word is God. If you know how to properly describe a thing, then you can gain dominion over that thing. Because the thing that's in a name, the name is supposed to describe everything about that thing. And if the name that you are given does not describe the whole thing, then you got a problem when trying to gain dominion over it. Because it has an aspect that you didn't know existed, because you lacked nomenclature. Do you understand? Okay. That's why even in the military, I used to wonder why they, why was it so necessary for me to learn the name of how to field strip a weapon, and the seer, the buffer, then all of those, and the follower, the trigger mechanism, all of those things. The more you know about this thing that you're handling, the more dominion you have over it. Even if it malfunctions, you know what part of it is malfunctioning. Do you understand? And if you know how to field strip it, you can go straight to the problem. Do you understand? So, okay.
Threshold of death. And they are recalling their experiences of what death was like. Many of them say that they realized that in this state they had died, yet their consciousness was heightened. They were able to watch doctors and nurses reviving them. They were able to see their family members. And they were telling themselves, well, this is what my experience of death is. So we think that a more accurate term that reflects what we now know scientifically is a recalled experience of death, as opposed to other terms that had previously been put forth.
This isn't exactly the same thing, but it kind of reminds me of when I've heard people quibble over the use of the word drowning, and many people assume if you drown, you've died, but you can drown and survive.
Exactly, and these are semantics, these are terminologies that we use. And I'd like to also sort of just point out another thing, which is that the word near death is not defined medically. It's very ambiguous. And so what it has done is, over the last 50 years, since Raymond Moody first put it forth, is it's led to people, essentially as we always do, making their own personal interpretations. So although yes, he was trying to talk about experiences that occur in people who are unconscious and on the brink of death. But many people now use it to refer to all sorts of experiences like under meditation, dreams, things that have nothing to do with each other or death itself. And they vehemently believe they're talking about a so-called near-death experience. And when you study what they talk about, they're totally different, of course. And so one of the things that we're trying to do is to bring scientific precision and accuracy, and that starts with terminology.
Talk to me a little bit about what you learned about brain activity during CPR.
Yeah, Courtney, we actually learned a lot. I mean, this study is, I think, it's going to be a pivotal study because it elucidated a number of areas of inquiry and answered a lot of questions that had been so far unanswered. One of the key things that we discovered was that in people in whom we were able to do brain monitoring, and by that I mean we were able to measure electricity in their brains, we found that the brain flatlines when people die. When the heart stops, because there's no blood and oxygen getting into the brain flatlines as we would have expected. But incredibly, even up to an hour with ongoing resuscitation efforts, we saw the emergence of normal-looking brain waves, the types of electrical signatures that we would see in your brain or mine when we're having these types of conversations, when we're lucid, when we're thinking, when we're reevaluating things. And we saw those markers emerge in people's brains up to 40% of the time while they were being revived. And so this confirmed the fact that people can indeed have consciousness while they are seemingly unconscious from the perspective of doctors and nurses who are reviving them, because we saw their electrical markers or signatures emerge in the brain. The study was carried out in phases, and actually putting on the brain electrical monitoring systems, the EEG, was the most complex element to this, and this was only introduced towards the latter parts of the study around after 2017. And so of the total of 567 patients who were studied, 85 of them got combined brain monitoring systems, both with an EEG that measured electricity, but also a different monitor that measured how much oxygen was getting into the brain second by second as patients were being revived. Of those people, and you have to remember now, what happens during cardiac arrest is there's, people are doing chest compressions all the time to try to restart the heart or at least circulate some blood around the body. Mm-hmm. And so while there is movement, you cannot get a picture. You cannot see what's happening inside the brain because you get what's called motion artifacts. So the way I try to analogize it is what we were trying to do is we were a bit like a satellite that's trying to look down on Earth and see what's happening. But actually, while there's movement, the movement creates, let's say, a great pollution or clouds where you cannot see beneath. Mm-hmm. The only time where we could get pictures of what was really happening was when people would naturally stop chest compressions, which happens usually every few minutes, to check to see if the person had a pulse again, if their heart had restarted. During those few seconds, the pollution, the cloud coverage disappears sometimes for a short period of time, and we could peer in and take pictures of what was really happening at the brain level. So of the 85 people who had brain monitoring systems attached, around 50 of them actually had data that we could use at some point during their resuscitation. The remainder were all, unfortunately, overcast. Let's put it that way for you. There was motion artifact, and we could not use. But among those people who we did get a good look at their brain, and I have to point out this is the only time there has been such a comprehensive look inside the brain throughout resuscitation because it is so complicated and so hard to do. As I pointed out, we were able to show that brain waves changed. They went from flat to showing signs of lucid consciousness, even up to an hour with ongoing resuscitation. Of course, it could have been more because, remember, we weren't taking pictures while the brain was overcast with movement artifacts. So that's the minimum that we could detect. The likelihood is that it was probably more as they were getting chest compressions, but we couldn't get pictures.
That's so fascinating. What are the implications just knowing that 60 minutes in, you're getting, brain waves that look like you'd see in any person having a conscious conversation? Does that change how we think about CPR and how long we should do CPR? And I mean, what do you think are the implications for standards of care going forward? I know this is one study and it's a small sample, but it must kind of make your mind start going into the future a bit.
It has a lot of implications, actually. And but the biggest point about this is that doctors and nurses are often mistakenly, and I was one of them, taught that the brain dies after 5 or 10 minutes of oxygen deprivation.
Mm-hmm.
And this goes to the question you asked me about, is the area of cardiac arrest resuscitation, underexplored? And yes, it is, because of this assumption that the brain dies after 5 or 10 minutes of oxygen deprivation, people don't try. Pharmaceutical companies don't try to find treatments because they think, what's the point? The brain is gone. Doctors don't try that hard sometimes. After about 20 minutes or so, they give up trying to resuscitate somebody because they think it's all too late. There's nothing you can do. So we were able to show that actually the brain essentially hibernates when there's no blood flowing to it, but it doesn't permanently die. It remains in a state where it's not working, but if you can treat it appropriately, you can revive it again. And that was a key discovery. So what this means is that instead of giving up now, not just doctors, but also industry, the pharmaceutical industry, funding bodies like the NIH and so on, can see that there is a huge opening where we can develop treatments to essentially preserve the brain and try to find better ways to restart the heart, knowing that it is not the end, that actually we've started in a new phase where we can actually bring people back and hopefully send them home to their families and to being active members of society. So that's one of the huge implications that comes out of this work.
That's really exciting. You were able to interview, I think, 28 people about their experiences who suffered cardiac arrest, survived, and were able to be spoken to by the research team. I would love to hear a little bit about what you all learned.
Well, what we were also trying to do, as I mentioned earlier, is we were trying to understand, one, can we find brain markers, these biomarkers of lucid consciousness in people as they're being revived? But also, as I mentioned to you, I've been doing this for a long time. And unfortunately, because of the misconceptions about resuscitation that we just talked about, together with lack of funding and support and lots of other logistical, operational barriers that have hindered research in this area, the way that resuscitation is practiced today is really pretty much the same as what it was in 1960 when it was first discovered. And so as a result, our overall ability to send people home and alive remains appallingly low. It's about 10%. And it hasn't changed because, of course, we're not doing anything different. It's a bit like, still trying to drive a Model T Ford in an era when other people are driving all-wheel drive and they have, hybrid vehicles and electric vehicles and so on. But in this one area of medicine, we're still, doing what people did in the past. So knowing that, at the outset of this study, we knew that even if we get, say, 600 patients or 567 patients, we wouldn't have more than 10% survivors, which is what we ended up with. And in order for us to understand what the experiences are like for people who've died, we had to combine this and bring in another cohort of patients, people who have already survived and are living in the community, who've remembered their experiences from their cardiac arrest. So we not only interviewed the 28 patients these are people who survived and were fit enough to give us an interview. We had more survivors, but many of them were too ill to give us an interview from the original cohort of 567 patients. But we also examined 126 people's testimonies. These were community survivors of cardiac arrest from all over the world to see what we can learn about the experience of death. And so what we did learn from this combined look at what people recall was that as they go through death, people experience that even though they are seemingly unconscious from our perspective, their own consciousness becomes heightened. They develop a sense of awareness and they can actually gather information from around themselves. And they have a sense of visualizing things almost in 360 degrees, which is unheard of normally. They then go through what I think is an absolutely incredible experience where they relive every single interaction that they've had with others. So when you were introducing this segment, you talked about your life flashing past you. That's really, with all respect, it's not you, but in general, the way that the media presents this, it's an understatement. It sort of doesn't do it justice. Because what the experience really feels like, and imagine yourself now having this situation where you're able to relive every single interaction in your entire life with other people. And now you're experiencing it not only from your own perspective, which is what they say, but also the perspective of others that you have dealt with. And you're able to recall your intentions behind your actions and all of your thoughts and every single emotional state that you've had throughout your entire life. So to give you perspective on that, it's seemingly impossible. I'm sure your memory is a lot better than mine in life. But even with someone who's got an amazing memory, we can't remember more than a fraction of our lives. If we try to talk about it, we probably go for an hour or two maximum, we're done. But yet, what is it about death that enables people to get access to everything as if it's been recorded in them? Their entire consciousness comes to the fore. And then they don't relive these as sort of, random memories. Oh, here's my first day of school. Here's when my mom told me off. Here's when I got married. Here's the birth of my child. Here's when I got a promotion at work. It's not like that at all. It's actually the way they interacted with people through their lives, and they evaluate that from the perspective of whether they had been moral and ethical or not. And that's independent of whatever their belief structures were beforehand, whether they were atheists, whether they had a religion.
In other words, they done found out that they are their own judge of how they treated people in life. And all of that comes flooding back. Remember the scripture says a day with the Lord is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is as one day. As I was telling you, if you could act and talk and build as fast as the brain thinks, what took 200 years would have taken you a couple hours. To this 200 years that this country, done 200 and something years that this country done been into effect, would amount to no more than 1/5 of a day. If you could work as fast as you think. So when the people say that their whole life passed before them, that you have some people that say they hear voices. Well, this man that just murdered a bunch of people said he heard voices in his head. When you understand that now this is me theorizing here based on what I'm hearing him say. Do you understand? We all come from the Creator, from the first man. Then whether you like to admit it or not, we are all interconnected. We're all relative to each other. Now, this mind, the brain, the mind, from what they are saying, that when you pass the threshold of death, you don't get out of this life without judging, without judgment. It is appointed once unto men to die, and after this is the what? The judgment. Who judges you? Does man think no one sees him, or that no one hears him? Has he not eyes? Has he not ears? The brain is a recorder. It's an honorable recorder. They sitting on each side, 2 honorable recorders, recording everything you say. 2 more honorable recorders recording everything you see. And it's all going to come back to you eventually. And you may have forgotten. Consciously, you do, so you can keep on adding to it. You notice. You've been to the shopping. You've been shopping before. You put stuff in your shopping cart. And a lot of times you put things in the shopping cart. If you had to rattle off everything that you put in that shopping cart, you'd have to go back and look again. You can't remember it just right off if you're really doing some real grocery shopping. Do you understand? That's why people take a list with them when they go to the shopping, because they can't remember all of that stuff. We don't remember all of the good that we do. We don't. Most people who practice goodness, they don't remember all of the good that they do. If they try not to practice evil, they remember all the evil that they do, for the most part. Because that's easier to remember, because you don't do much of it. Do you understand? And likewise, people who do evil, they don't remember most of the evil that they do. But they'll recall the good that they did. And that's easy to recall. But the brain actually has a record of it all. And that's why he was saying, when they talked to people and the people was telling them that they was having moral dilemmas so much, as everything they did, they could look at it from the other person's. If they did wrong to a person, they could see the effect that it had. You know, and it's all done in microseconds. Do you understand? The whole thing is replayed, and it's memories, not dreams. And at the end, a judgment. That part he didn't say. I'm adding that. That's what happens at the end of any hearing. And who's more just to you than your own self? You can't claim you don't like the judge, because the judge is you. The self-accusing spirit. The mind could not be self-accusing if the mind didn't have a memory of everything you did and what was your motivation for doing it. You notice they say, what motivated it? Did he really? You know what your motivation was. It's recorded. Do you understand? So the scripture gives you a way out, a savior. That's where I come in. The Son of Man have power on earth to forgive sins. So did you believe in the Son? And did you get forgiveness? Well, if you didn't, well...
belief, and whether they even try to adhere to morals in their life before that. And so there is something phenomenal that seems to be occurring in death, everything, as if it's been recorded in them. Their entire consciousness comes to the fore. And then they don't relive these as sort of, random memories. Oh, here's my first day of school. Here's when my mom told me off. Here's when I got married. Here's the birth of my child. Here's when I got a promotion at work. It's not like that at all. It's actually the way they interacted with people through their lives, and they evaluate that from the perspective of whether they had been moral and ethical or not. And that's independent of whatever their belief structures were beforehand, whether they were atheists, whether they had a religious belief, and whether they even tried to adhere to morals in their life before that. And so there is something phenomenal that seems to be occurring in death that we're just beginning to discover.
I love how you describe it as kind of a breaking...
See, he didn't know what it was. But the minute they told him that the people have a attack of morality. Was it right? What was motivating you to do this and all that? That's the judgment, man. That proves the scriptures. The scriptures teaches you that man is sufficient as a witness against himself. Do you understand that? You are a creature of your habits. What is creature? What's the root word of creature? Create. Your thoughts are created by what you do. You learn what you do. Are you hearing me? Knowing that, then your hands, your eyes and your ears, they are witnesses against you. And they will say, O hands, why hast thou borne witness against me? O skin, why hast thou borne witness against me? Huh? Because he who makes everything to bear witness hath made us to bear witness. Why? What is your brain other than a witness? To what the mind, what your actions and deeds filled it with? I don't know. Man, this is something. To hear scientists bearing witness to the truth of the scriptures while they don't even know that that's what they're bearing witness to.
Basically, like the way that we all function every day now is we access the part of our brain that we need to access, and we can remember certain things, but we go through life that way. But it's almost like the braking system is removed as we cross into death.
It's absolutely. I think one of the other things that came out of our study was that we were able to come forth with an explanation as to why these recalled experiences of death, why these hyper-lucid, hyper-conscious experiences of death occur. And the first thing that I have to point out is that we concluded that these are real experiences that emerge with death. These are not hallucinations, as people have sometimes claimed. These are not illusions. These are not a trick of the brain. This is a real experience that emerges with death. And we're now discovering it because science has pushed itself into the territory beyond death, which we thought was impossible in the past. And the reason why we think this is occurring, the mechanism, is that you have to remember right now for you and I to have this interview, most of our brain function has to be inhibited from our consciousness, because if all of the things that our brain was doing was in our consciousness, we would have total information overload. We couldn't function in life. And so our brain is adapted to bring into the fore the things that matter at a given time and push everything else down. And we have braking systems that do that. But now what happens with death? You stop blood flow to the brain. There's no more oxygen getting. Energy doesn't get the brain anymore. And so those braking systems are no longer able to function, and they're removed.
Yeah. Can't let you get out of life without a judgment. Can't let you get out of life without realizing why you ain't being allowed to go no further. Do you understand? Because what was the promise that God made? He said that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. What is the one thing that people would give everything they had to preserve? Is their life. Is that right? All that a man have will he give for his life. That's the one thing that the Word of God promises to those that love God. He said they will have life everlasting. Eyes haven't seen, ears haven't heard, neither has entered into the hearts of men to conceive what God hath in store for those that love him. So we have a great promise from God of what he will do for us, because he promised that he would be all and in all. And now we're finding out that through science, that once what we thought we were disconnected we find out that we are not disconnected. We are actually interconnected to each other. And right at the point of to be or not to be, we find out everything that we did that helped or hurt people, we get to view it from their point of view. Do you understand? And that's what that was so fascinating to me when I was listening to him speak. And it made all the sense in the world to me. As you would that men do to you, do ye also unto them. We don't have to. We've consciously came to the realization that, look, man, it ain't no way you go and complain if you was butchered, if your people were butchered and maimed or enslaved, and you condemned it, then you don't have a leg to stand on when you go and do that to somebody else. Do you understand? You've already looked at it through their eyes. Do you understand? And you ignored it. You had a choice to either do what you condemned or remember that you condemned it and refrain from doing it. Huh? What did you choose? Do men think they will be left alone on saying we believe in this or we believe in that and will not be tried for what they said they believed? While all others were tried before you. It's a lot of people condemned tyranny and became tyrants. I didn't hear you. It's just like right now. The United States, white man fought a war against a tyrant king. And now here they are, got a whole party, a whole political party trying to reintroduce tyranny. I didn't hear you. And now, if the Republican Party is not trying to reintroduce tyranny, I would like you to come in and straighten me out on what tyranny is and how that's not what the Republican Party is about. Come in and tell us. I'll listen. And all I want to do is give me the same privilege that I give you, which is to question me. Let me question you, and you give me answers to the questions that I ask you. You have a right to ask me what made me come up with this statement to accuse the Republican Party of trying to reintroduce tyranny after they themselves, even Republicans and Democrats, agreed on the fact that King George was a tyrant. They got away from that kind of government, from kings and dictators. Then why are you trying to reestablish a dictator? But anyway, I mean that's on you. I mean you don't realize that you picked a side against God, and you will lose. You have already lost. You just don't have sense enough to know it. Look at me standing up here calling your party a dictator, a tyrannical party, and you can't even come in here and say nothing and defend it. I'll listen if you got something you want to say. But the only thing you can say is things that are insulting. Because that's all you have. You don't have anything better to give to the people than this democratic republic that George Washington and Thomas Jefferson them gave. You don't have nothing better than this. Nor do you have anything equal to it. You proved that with what happened on January 6th. Because you live in a society that you can, if you can stand up in front of the American public and convince them that you have something better to offer them, they'll vote you into office. Do you understand? But how do you get in? You lie. You tell people lies, and you deceive people into you try to frighten people into subjecting themselves to your salvation. You frighten them, and you lie on people that would have helped the people, just like the stuff you say about Joe Biden. What do you look like calling Joe Biden's family a crime family? Ain't that something? It's just some low-down people. What need to happen is that somebody in Joe Biden's family need to sue you. Even if it ain't him. He's the president. He might not sue you, but his family could. They ought to sue them. Sue Fox News. Sue any of those news stations that help perpetuate that lie. Sue them. You will win, just like what was that? Dominion machine. Dominion won because they lied about Dominion. And they lying about the Biden family. And Trump admitted that his family is a crime family when he was in that civil matter, and they asked him about who's responsible for making sure there is no fraud, and he said everybody in his family was in on the fraud thing. Huh? Is that a crime family? Okay. So these are the kind of things that I when people hear me talking, don't you think it's strange that none of them ever come in here and question me further about what I say? You don't think that's strange? When they have an opportunity to do so? You know why they don't question me? It's because I can go deeper. I have, when you keep up with the reports and the news, if you know how to put it all together, the evidence is all there. Do you understand? It's all there. Just like Giuliani when he said Trump was going to. You know what gave me the final piece to what they really had in mind about the January 6th and what Trump was what he was really planning on doing? Giuliani. When Ms. Hutchinson said that Giuliani told her Trump is going to look powerful, it immediately flashed into my mind how he was going to do that. And that's why he was so adamant about those Secret Service men driving him down to the Capitol. Because he would have looked powerful if he got out of the vehicle and after they had taken a few steps, the escorts that he had. The Secret Service man had been shot down around him, and he stood there, and as though he's brave and you know, and then declared martial law. Do you understand? He would have looked powerful. And then he would have blamed it. You notice, he blamed it on, he tried to say Antifa. Well, you know what Antifa means? Anti-fascist. Is that bad? Is being anti-fascism bad? Then why are those people so against Antifa? Because they are promoting fascism. Fascism is just another way of promoting racism, tyranny, dictatorship. In other words, anti-democracy. Do you understand? Fascism. You see? And so, you know, I could go on and on and on, but I'm not. I'm going to let this finish, and then we're going to close.
What happens then is that people are able to access dormant parts of their brain that were being held down through this process of what's called disinhibition. And that is what we see with these markers of, you know, lucid brainwaves, the signatures that we detect. And activation of those parts, in turn, gives people access to new dimensions of reality that perhaps were not relevant while they were trying to pay the bills or conducting an interview, but that come to the fore with death. They become relevant when you're in this life and death situation. And that includes the entirety of your consciousness. Everything you have done, everything you have thought, all of your emotional states come to the fore. And these are not only anecdotal reports, although yes, we studied 28 people plus another 126, but these have been reported for many years by millions of people who don't know each other, who are all describing the same thing. And so I think that what is happening is that death is bringing out access to these new dimensions of reality, including our entire consciousness. And we have to ask ourselves, what is the purpose of this? Why is it that we evaluate everything from the perspective of morality and ethics when we're at death, not the way we necessarily did in life? And why does that become the predominant way that we think when we're in this limbo state between life and death? Is there an evolutionary purpose for this?
The reason that we evaluate everything from a moral standard is because we are all from God. If the head of every man is Christ, then the messengers of God, they are the heads for all human beings. And then the head of them is God. Then we are all of the body of God. So naturally, we think in terms of ethical and moral standards. Did we adhere to them? Or did we break them? Do you understand? And we give account of it based on our own decisions that we made, our own deeds and actions, witness for and against us. Do you understand? Okay. In other words, Allah is purifying his body. This world was set up for what?
The perdition of ungodly men.
You cannot accuse a man of being unwomanly. Huh? Why? You don't say, that's very unwomanly of you. Well, you don't accuse a man of being unwomanly because a man is not a woman. Do you understand? If you were not God's, it would not be a crime for you to be ungodly. I didn't hear you. And notice, that don't leave women out. In the name of Allah, the beneficent, the male, the merciful, the man, the woman. Huh? And these two are one. She is of the man, and the man is of her. You see? So, her proper name is womb man. Because she is the womb out of which man can be recreated. She is the man with the womb. Do you understand? Yes. Well, it's much to be unpacked and realized. And this is science and religion are one. Science and true religion. You hear the messenger, he hints at that when he said, I could repeat with that old scientist, oh, woe, worth the day. The worth of the day is only woe. You see? It's, you can't be a scientist and don't believe in religion, because that's what scientists do. They religiously, day in and day out, seek truth. And the truth is God. The truth is the grantor of dominion. If you want to have dominion of anything, you must seek out the truth of that thing. I didn't hear you. And the truth of that thing is the God of that thing.
A benefit to us, and what is it preparing us for as we're transitioning away?
It's interesting to me because you point out the fact that science has kind of brushed this.
Not so much preparing you for, is what's making you realize that you out of it. You failed. You didn't live up to what you. If you was righteous, you wouldn't be having this conversation. Do you understand? You gotta remember something. That's why you needed a savior, because everybody was on death row. You understand? Now,
a bit and hasn't devoted a lot of research power to this topic, but honestly, we're all kind of endlessly fascinated, every person, by what happens when we die. Why do you think we can all have that curiosity, but we have kind of refused to follow it with science and medical research?
I think we all have that curiosity because at some point or the other, we do realize that we're not going to live forever. And so we naturally gravitate to the question, which is a vital question. Again, this is universal. All 8 billion of us on Earth today.
All matter lives forever. But the forms that matter is in is self-destructive.
This is going to affect us. I mean, there's nothing else as relevant to every single one of us and our family.
I don't think I made that up. If you was questioning God and you asked him, well, where did you come from? He said, I fashioned myself from everlasting material. And until I perfect myself, then I will leave this farm and go right back to that everlasting material. And keep recycling it until I perfect myself. Do you understand? So, no, that's not reincarnation. That's Scripture. From everlasting to everlasting. As it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with He that was formed from that everlasting material. The Word was with God. And before me there was no God formed. And it says, and then it says, and when He wasn't here no more, the Word that He left was God. Do you understand? The beginning, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, who was the beginning. And then the Word itself was God, not the matter that He was in, but the Word that was in that matter made Him God. Do you understand? So it's lots to be thought of, and the Word of God is so deep that even when you think that you have reached the end of it, you discover that you're just at the beginning. No, it's so much to be understood. And it's so much that has been misunderstood. But now is the day of the seventh angel, and the mystery of God is being finished, and the Son is revealing the Father to you. Do you understand? So, for the Father is the truth, and I'm revealing the truth to you without any contradictions. You hear people all the time get up and talk, and people can disagree with them. But you hear me get up and talk, and people don't have anything to disagree with me with, because they've never even heard this kind of teaching before. Do you understand? So, even my enemies have to acknowledge that what I'm saying always makes sense.
It's our loved ones. But unfortunately, and this is really to do with social definitions, because we created a social definition that said, we label something death, and therefore that means the end. We then thought as science that we can't do it. And unfortunately, with all respect, there's also prejudice among scientists, because they somehow feel, some of them feel that if you start to explore things like, what is consciousness, who am I, what happens when we die, those are supposedly religious questions. To me, that makes no sense. We deal with life and death every day. Every day. We dealt with COVID, where people were dying in the millions. How is it that science should not be exploring this question?
It's because they have misnamed everything. When you truly understand that death is just matter changing forms, then you can have an intelligent discussion about what happens after death. Do you understand? But until you recognize what you call death is not the end of the material. It's the end of the form that the material was in. Do you understand? And then that consciousness has met with its consequence. And to the wise, you can learn, just put yourself a little step closer to conquering death. Do you understand? If you learn something. For humanity is really one. How many more of us have to suffer what you call death before we learn how not to die? That's a good question. But the answer to it is to first ask the question. Because as long as you think that you just have to die, you are living under a misconception. Death is not a force or power of itself. Death is the result of the absence of light, like darkness. Darkness is the absence of light. Darkness is not a entity. Darkness is not a force. Darkness is like ignorance. Ignorance is the lack of knowledge. And it's easily done away with by knowledge. Do you understand? Okay. We die because we don't know how not to. And as long as we recognize that that's a truth, well, the wages of sin. What is sin? Transgressing the law of God. What is God? Who is God? God is the truth. So when you transgress the truth of life, when you don't follow the truth that leads to life, you die. Huh? And the warning is, first you get sick. That's your warning. That you done did something that's contrary to life. Huh? And then when you recognize that, it's time to make some course corrections. What course corrections? You know, when you sit down in a restaurant to eat, they ask you, are you ready for your second course? Well, whatever you've been eating in the way of knowledge, those are courses. And you go to school and you take different courses. I didn't hear you. In life, you take courses. And the courses that you take is basically the way that you conduct yourself. Because you learning what you're doing. And as you do those things, you have mapped out a course that's leading you either to life or leading you to death. Do you understand? So it's time for a course correction. All right. But anyway, I'm going to put a pin in it there. And if it pleases Allah, we will talk to you some more. Well, it had about 3 more minutes or something to go here, so I'll let that
How
finish.
this is some sort of philosophical notion? That makes no sense whatsoever. So I think it's about recognizing that the labels we give have negative downstream consequences. The reality of death is that it's a medical condition. It's actually a whole body stroke. Your body is oxygen deprived when you die. And like any stroke, it's not a black and white moment where you switch on and off. There's a process of injury that occurs afterwards that takes hours and hours of time. And so therefore we need to, instead of labeling this as black and the end, we should be open to the fact that this is a shade of gray and we can bring people back to life and at the same time explore life's biggest mystery, which is not, again, whether we can land on the south portion of the moon or something like that, something far more fundamental and important.
My guest this hour is Dr. Sam Parnia, Director of Critical Care and Resuscitation Research, Department of Medicine, New York University School of Medicine. The study he helmed is called Awareness During Resuscitation 2, a multi-center study of consciousness and awareness in cardiac arrest. Dr. Parnia, thank you so much for your time. What a great conversation.
Thank you so much, Courtney. I really enjoyed the interview with you.
You can find us on Facebook and Instagram. Just search for KERA Think and subscribe to our podcast for free wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for KERA Think. You can also get the podcast on our website where you can find out about upcoming shows. That's at think.kera.org. Once again, I'm Courtney Collins in for Chris Boyd. Thanks so much for listening and have a great day.
Yeah, I listened to MPB a lot. You know, well, not a lot, but from time to time I may turn it on, and I turned it on today, and it had that interesting thing on there, so I thought I would go to it and replay it for you. That is, you know, I thought it was a very enlightening broadcast they had. And it verified some of the things that, that you don't get out of life without a judgment. You see. And it made me understand my purpose more, about, giving people a clean slate. Do you understand? When they call it exculpatory evidence. The history of how the man of sin was made and why is exculpatory evidence for him. I remember the messenger said, if you say there goes the devil, then don't try patterning yourself after him. If you say you're righteous, show the devil that you're a righteous person, because he's watching you for such. And if you say he's not righteous, he will tell you, I was not my maker. And that'll stop your mouth. Do you understand? And because he was not his maker, as Paul said, can the clay say to the potter, what makest thou out of me? No. The potter makes whatever he wants out of the clay. And now I'm here to remake everybody. So if you want to be free of guilt, then be not conformed to this world and its ways. Be not consciously formed to the ways of this world and their thinking, but be ye transformed by getting in these classes and renewing your way of thinking. Do you understand? Being born again. To be born again is to renew yourself. Once you renew your mind, then there are so many other possibilities that await us. So, anyway, I'm going to leave it there. May Allah bless us, keep us safe, and in our right minds. May Allah's Salam Alaikum.
Take a selfie. That's a lesson right there.